killed one. Okay, let's see how long this can continue. I'm not even gonna touch anything right here, alright? I'm just gonna let the Black River corpse explosion kind of just do its work. Oh, I gotta move. I gotta stand in the circle, though. Okay? Even the elites, alright? It doesn't matter. The thing's coming by. I gotta move into the circle, okay? But, like, I'm not even really doing anything. They're just dying. It's popping. Black River is just, like, the best item in the game. You can never convince me to ever play a Necromancer build without this item. It's just way too good. I'm not even, like, a minion build or anything. I'm just full-on letting it just auto AFK. Okay, we got one kill over there. And, let's stand right here so we get both of them over here. Yeah, we perfected it. And what's weird is, this is a Bone Spear build. Like, this is how I'm dealing my damages with Bone Spear. But, like, I can if I want to, as long as there's just one corpse, okay? One corpse has to exist. And then, pretty much, it's just gonna cause a chain reaction, and... What's up? 4 mil? Necromancer. And look, no Tibalts, no Ring of the Starless Skies. Alright guys, let's hop into the build. So for starters, let's talk about what makes our build so much better and so much different than the conventional Bone Spear Necromancer build. And that really comes down to having this item called the Black River. This is going to be Black Bone Spear is what I'm going to be calling it because we're going to be using Black River. This allows us to also get additional ranks of certain skills and passives, which gives us extra corpses and gives us extra corpse explosions that are going to do so much damage that will essentially one-shot a lot of things, even at Sigil 100. When we are able to absorb a huge amount of corpses, it's going to add like 500 plus damage on corpse explosion. So we're getting more damage than the conventional builds, and we are also getting more essence, and that allows us to basically spam Bone Spear, no Tibalt in the gameplay here, and it basically makes a much smoother experience because you don't have to juggle a basic skill, weave it in between, and that's what I really like with this build. So it's going to be faster, giving you infinite resources, and on top of that, you get more damage and more clear speed. So that's what's going to make our build so much better than the conventional Bone Spear build. So that's going to be the major factor in what makes this build a lot different than what you've seen. So let's go ahead and talk now about the skills and how to actually play the build. For starters, the first skill that we're running is called Decrepify. We only really cast it on bosses to get some extra damage reduction. That's it. We don't really use it for the extra cooldown reduction, but if you want to put the points into it, sure. Basically, I only activate it if I'm doing Sigil 100s, and there's Elite Pack. I'll throw it on once and then going back to spamming my Bone Spear. The next skill, I really like Blood Mist because it allows us to actually pick up any of the Anemus, or if I need to stand in some AoE for a second because I'm kind of lazy, I don't want to walk backwards, or if there's that Lightning Strike that comes down from Sigil 100, yeah, those absolutely will one-shot you, so being able to do that and reposition is quite nice, but those two skills are technically optional. So you can see, watch the resource right here. This is what makes our build so good. Again, there's just no Tibalt in the gameplay, and we are just shredding content, and you can see my essence just goes right back to full, no Tibalt, and that is because of, again, Black River. So, the other skills, we don't actually need to activate Corpse Tendrils or Corpse Explosions. These automatically get activated, which means a very smooth gameplay experience. Then we are running Bone Spear for our damage, and then Bone Storm to actually buff us. So in terms of the gameplay, all we really need to do is, in general, this is kind of how the build works because we also combine Flicker Step. So we would want to shoot our Bone Spear 2 times, Corpse Explosion will just activate automatically because something will die in the background, and then we get to use a Evade. This will actually proc our Flicker Steps potentially and just gives us extra move speed. One thing I didn't like in general, coming from a player that normally plays Rogue and Sorceress, is the slow movement speed at which the Necromancer has. But because Flicker Step has the ability to actually give you extra Evade cooldown, you're able to jump in between, and if you run Metamorphosis, you get kind of a little boost of speed with your Evade. It just kind of activates a little bit faster than your general normal evade, and that's what I like so much with this build. Another thing is we're getting 100% crit, and Bone Storm is going to be able to be upkept pretty much 100% of the time, with the exception of if you're walking out in the open world and there's just simply no monsters. You're seeing open world gameplay now that we've already cleared Sigil 100, but you could do pretty much every single thing in this entire game with this build. but I will give you an alternate build in case you do want to swap things up. We'll talk about that in a second. So now we know how to actually play the build, which is basically just spam 2 bone spears and then use an evade, and then spam 2 bone spears, use an evade. That's kind of how the build actually plays. Now, the next thing I want to go over is Book of the Dead. So for the Skeletal Warriors, we're going to be sacrificing them. Because it's Bone Spear build, we're sacrificing everything. So one of the ones you're going to be sacrificing is for the bonus crit strike chance. And then with the Skeletal Mages, we're going to be sacrificing them for extra essence. Essence is really key for the build. This one's just kind of cut off over here because I cropped it over here so we don't see like the full screen. But yeah, we just sacrifice to get extra crit, and then we get extra essence. And then with Iron Golem, we get extra crit strike damage. We can get extra health if we want. So that's what we run for Book of the Dead. Now, in terms of the gear here, you can run Shako, you can run Deathless Visage. Deathless Visage is an excellent item because it's going to give us extra maximum essence. It also leaves a little like pop at the very end. This is actually pretty big for extra damage, and that can actually proc other things in the game, which is really awesome. So if you want to run a Shako, again, that's going to be more defensive. Deathless Visage actually gives you better offensive stats because it gives you increased maximum essence. More essence equals more damage. So this is going to be probably the first time I ever mentioned that, yeah, Shako is not the best in slot and helm. Again, for defensive purposes, sure, but you can run Deathless Visage. It's excellent as well. Next up, the aspect of Disobedience in our chest piece, or you can put it in your pants, but aspect of Disobedience. And now I'm going to go over the gear stat priority. So you want maximum life, total armor, damage reduction from close, damage reduction, you can get int. Any combination of those is going to be kind of the gear stat priorities across the entire board. But yeah, Disobedience is just really good overall because it's the only way to really increase your like survivability here. Next up, we're running Grasping Veins. This is going to give us up to 20% increased critical strike chance when we actually have Corpse Tendrils activated. And then we're going to get extra crit strike damage. And this, we don't even have to manage at all. Again, we just have it auto-cast. If you want to, in between, you could keep this up 100% uptime. If you want to manually cast Corpse Tendrils, I don't like doing it. I just like the autoplay playstyle of just spam Bone Spear. That's how I want to play. I don't want to run a basic. This is why I like my build so much better, and numerically stat-wise. If you want to see some maybe speed runs in the future, we can maybe speed run against some of the other builds that don't run Black River, aka the Black Bone Spear, which makes it so much faster. Having all these things automating, consuming massive amount of corpses is just excellent. But in terms of our pants, we are running Shielding Storm. So this is how we get Barrier in our build. It gives us extra survivability because there's not really a defensive slot here where we can get like an insane amount of survivability, and it lets us basically have extra survivability for no maintenance. And then we are running Flicker Step. So Flicker Step is going to keep us at 100% uptime of our Bone Storm. It also has a stat that you can't really roll. I mean, you can see I'm literally AFK right here, and this is in World Tier 4, obviously. I know it's the open world, but you can do Hell Tides, anything. A lot of these objectives where you have to stand still and it's like a duration last, or like survive for X amount of time, or waves. You can see I'm AFK and we're hitting for like 500k here, and that's not even counting the enemy being vulnerable and under the amount of HP, 79%, which is a big number for getting bonus crit damage that has like a huge multiplier, which this is where you can go in the millions in damage by just having Corpse Explosion. But you can see over here, yeah, damage reduction from close normally doesn't roll on boots, so it's excellent for that, but obviously we are using it specifically for the bonus of being able to get our ultimate with 100% uptime. But look, I'm AFK over here. So Black River, this is the star of the show. So it gives us bonus ranks to all corpse skills, so that means more corpse explosion damage. And then the Hued Flesh is actually really good as well. And then all the passes are pretty good. So like arguably this is really awesome for the stats overall. I wish it had Lucky Hit instead of like the life on kill, but that still isn't like a bad stat since we now have like the crit going to additive damage versus like multiplicative in like season 0 or season 1. And then for our amulet over here, we're looking for the aspect over here where Bone Storm can consume more corpses, lasting a little bit longer. I like this one. It's technically optional if you want to run Flicker Step and use its ability more. I just don't really like always having to activate Flicker Step, and this kind of adds a little bit of a buffer. So I like it here, but if you want to run something else, you definitely can. Next up over here, we're running Ring of the Sacrilegious Soul. You want the lowest number possible. This is going to make it the best. And yeah, it just automatically activates your stuff. I love it. It's awesome. You still have to run on your bar. You still have to run Corpse Explosion and Corpse Tendrils, but you don't have to actually cast them. And that's what makes this build so much better. And then we're running the aspect of Serration. So this is going to give us extra damage based off of our essence. It gives our key passive that we'll talk about in a second, which gives more damage based off of more essence. And then over here in the focus or shield. It's kind of optional what you want to play here. The only really important stat to get is the crit strike chance, and then lucky hit chance to restore a primary resource. The rest of the stuff, all stats, resource gen, like all those are great stats. Again, choose what you want to actually play there. And then next up, as far as the gems go, we're going to be running emerald in the weapon, and then rubies in the chest pieces, and then in the jewelry, you can run diamonds, or if you already meet your resistances, because maybe you happen to run like a chest piece and it has like some extra resistances, hey, that's fine. You can go ahead and throw in different things in the jewelry slot, specifically skulls. Now, for the Vampiric Powers, we are running Prey on the Weak, Ravenous, Accursed Touch, Metamorphosis, and Sanguine Brace. So this build will actually have 100% crits, so that's what Sanguine Brace is there for. If you want to read how to get all of your crit over here, I actually explain how to get the total maximum crit over here. That's how we actually achieve it. So just read under the summary if you want to kind of understand how we get maximum crit. So, like, you may need to get crit on your ring if you don't reach 100%. You may not need to get it, so you can get a different stat instead on the ring if you do want to go ahead and go for that. So keep in mind, there could be something where like you may not need to get crit in one area if your crit already exceeds it, but I'm leaving some room for certain pieces of gear not to be perfect. Like for example, like on the gloves, crit strike chance and attack speed are great, but you may already have perfect crit on your build, so you don't actually need it. But getting the lucky hit chance to restore is always good. It's probably one of the best stats in the entire game for pretty much most builds in the game. Next up, let's go over the skill tree. So as far as the skill tree goes, if you are running out of resource and you don't happen to have the stats that I happen to have, then running something like Reap and putting another point into Acolyte's Reap can be actually okay. It generates a corpse. Corpse equals more resource because it's going to be popping. And then for our Bone Spear, this is where my build gets a little bit different from what I've seen other people play. So I opt to not run Imperfectly Balanced. If you want to put points into it, that's fine. It makes your skills cost more, but we're already melting content. You do enough damage. You don't need to waste extra resource. And then I actually run Paranormal Bone Spear to get me 2 additional shards upon being destroyed, which gives our build significant more damage. It also gives us extra crit strike chance versus applying vulnerability. I apply it through the Vampiric Powers. And then Hued Flesh. This is excellent. This is what Black River allows us to give ourself extra corpses, which gives us massive amount of huge corpse explosion damage. And when you're killing some small stuff and you get all these corpses and it just pops and you get these really juicy explosions like you'll probably see over here. Boom, look at that, 4 mil right there. Like, it's just ridiculous how good Black River is in the build. And then I put 1 point into Blood Mist. If you have Shako, you can not put 1 point into it just so you can run it. Again, I like it for if there's a giant explosion and I'm kind of lazy or I'm in a corner, then I just activate it, it's fine. And then we are running Corpse Explosion. Max this thing out. I want to run the Plagued Corpse Explosion. You really only get the bonus from the slow or stun and vulnerable. You can get all of those, which is quite nice because the corpse tendrils will slow and stun, and then obviously they're going to be vulnerable. So that's where Corpse Explosion just does like crazy damage. And then Grim Harvest, that's how we actually generate a resource. This is part of what Black Death adds to the build that makes our build super above what you normally see with other builds in Fueled by Death. And then over here, we are going to be running Death's Reach, Death's Embrace, get some extra DR. And then I just like 1 point into Corpse Tendrils. If you want to, you can actually slow them down. You can also make them vulnerable. Blood Orb is kind of worthless for our build. You know, shout outs to that person because I'm not even streaming and I got a sub. Thank you, mate. Anyways, Serration over here giving us extra crit. Compound Fracture over here, making it so we are getting extra damage, and then this one, Evolution, also more damage. And then this one's optional, giving us more attack speed with Inspiring Leader, and then Standalone as well as Memento Mori, just giving us more bonuses on the sacrifice. And then Bone Storm, and then Prime Bone Storm, and then Supreme, so this is how we get all of our crit, and then Ossified Essence over here. Next up, as far as the Paragon board goes, our board is so awesome. It's literally only 4 boards, so you only have to level up 4, which is awesome. I was looking at the Necromancer builds. A lot of people are also playing like in Bieber. I've been checking out other builds, and I feel like that they're unnecessary. Like in Bieber, you can push to like maybe about 100 if you really min-max it in terms of additive damage, but you can go off to the side and get like basically the same amount with 1/3 of the points here, which is excellent. But nonetheless, here's what it looks like. Again, I will have the full build pinned down below in the pinned comment as well as a description. But basically, you're going to make your build way more tanky with this by only having 4 nodes, because the rest of the different glyphs and stuff with Necromancer, they're like bonus to Golem. There's like bonus to like the skeletons or mages, and it's weird because minions are absolutely terrible in this game. I'll be talking about that in the future. But nonetheless, in our first one, we're going to be getting Exploit on the starter board. Then we're going to move up to Flesh Eater, and then we're going to be grabbing Corporeal over here. And it doesn't matter the order, by the way. Then we go into Bone Graft, one of the most overpowered glyph like boards in the entire game. Getting Essence over here, giving us massive amount of crit damage, and we're also going to be getting the Bone Graft legendary node, and then we're also getting Flesh Eater here, and then another legendary node on Sent to Death with the Sacrificial, and like, yeah, this board is absolutely amazing. Now, just as a heads up, there are there's 3 extra points that you'll have in the build. I just put them into intelligence because there's no extra yellow node or blue nodes to actually reach that are actually worthy. Like, you can get extra willpower because there's no other bonus Paragon board that's giving us like a huge amount of damage. Instead of getting one more Paragon board, I'm getting extra life. I'm getting more actual crit damage, where some builds I've seen actually skipped out on these, and they're skipping out on these to just reach more Paragon boards. But you'd be losing out on so much survivability. I can get like basically 3 sets of clusters, extra clusters that they wouldn't be getting, because I normally play rogue. So I was actually looking at a lot of different necro builds, and like, mathematically, I like mine so much better. Try out other necromancer builds and tell me that the Black River variant is not way better, because again, I don't have to spend any basic skills. That's why I'm calling mine the best build, because, well, I mean, I literally think it is the best build. But try out other builds and let me know, guys, what you think. Or if you've played necromancer that don't play in Bone Spear, that don't play Black River, and try out Black River and tell me if you've noticed a massive, and I mean massive difference, because after I swapped to this, I'm like, okay, I can actually play this build, because I hated how Necromancer played. It was relatively slow, and then also using basic skills, I didn't like it. I just want to spam my Bone Spear hit for like millions and millions of damage. So keep in mind, just as a heads up, I just want to mention this really quick, because I always get some criticism sometimes, but like, your Bone Spear damages are lower than my damage. So here's how this build works. We have 100% crit. If another build, let's say, has like 80% crit, and their crits may hit harder because they're getting more additive bonus damage in other areas, we also, remember, have that extra corpse explosion to hit for millions of damage. So it's basically getting 2 skills dealing damage here. So in theory, we get way more damage overall DPS versus looking at the raw numbers. Also, you have to factor in when other builds may be using a basic skill. If they're out of essence, they're using basic skills. Basic skills in Diablo 4 are pretty much terrible, with the exception of maybe Arc Lash. So you're getting way more actual true DPS versus like, okay, I'm out of resource, I gotta spam this thing. And if you are still having problems with Essence, there's a second build in the pinned, which will also show off 2 extra things that you can try out yourself. So if you want to look at the aspect of Torment, it's going to give you up to 170% extra Essence regen when you crit. Since we have 100% crit, this is going to be always able to be up. We will lose some damage if you put this in, but being at 100% uptime on Essence and just spamming Bone Spear is still going to give you way more DPS than the ossified bonus key passive one that you can go for. There's also aspect of Exposed Flesh, and make sure you get that extra resource generation. That is very important. Getting maximum Essence in different pieces of gear can also help, and on your offhand, your shield focus, getting this is actually really good as well. Specifically getting that lucky hit chance to restore, as well as resource generation. But again, there's going to be 2 builds down below, and we could add a couple as we go along for other various different swaps if you want to go ahead and mix things up. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, have some fun, and if you guys have any suggestions or questions, let me know in the comment section below. But enjoy the build, guys. Subscribe if you're new and you want an update to this build. When Avatar of Zir comes out, we will be dropping another update in case we need to actually play lidless, but I felt like lidless is pretty much unnecessary. But that's going to wrap it up. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.